All right, we're back on.
Let's go. New week.
New week. We got a fantastic guest. We're going to talk a little basketball, a little overall sports, and success in sports, especially with respect to high school. We got Coach Bydook, and I'll let Coach D give a nice full introduction on this. But we're going to talk about some things that hopefully we can all learn some lessons on, and especially as coaches, but also as athletes.
Yeah, absolutely. I've known Coach Bydook for a long time. High school basketball coach, athletic director, one of the winningest coaches in the state of New Jersey in terms of boys basketball. Athletic director. So we're talking about administrative work, and originally a football guy to begin with. And a little tidbit most people don't know, but our previous guest, head coach of American Heritage in Florida, Coach Bydook, would be his uncle. So a little bit of family tree action going here. So look forward to hearing what Coach has to say and dropping some knowledge on our viewers.
Cool. It's without further ado, bring Coach on here. What's going on, Coach?
Coach.
Good morning.
How are you, man? Good. I appreciate you coming on and talking some ball with us.
Thanks for having me.
Anytime.
Coach, for the viewers, kind of if you can give just a history of your career from a coaching standpoint, maybe even athletically, and that way we can make sure everyone has a sufficient background. I know Derek touched on wonderfully, but allow you to really kind of go.
Well, let me tell you something before we get going. I've known Derek for a long time, like he said, and my first recollection of him, I was at a sideline of a Butler football game. I believe they were playing Glen Rock. And, I was really into football at that time, and I still am. And this guy comes on, and he put on probably one of the best hits I've ever seen, all right? And it was Derek. I mean, he put one on the kid, and I was really impressed then, and I'm still impressed now. So that's where it all started with Derek a long time ago. Yeah, he touched on a little bit. I started out really wanted to be a football coach. It's one of the things I was looking to do. I started out before I even started at Kinnelon High School, where I originally started and where I graduated from. I was helping out with the football team, and we had some pretty good players at that time, and it was a lot of fun. And then I decided I wanted to get a graduate assistantship someplace in football. So I traveled the South. I went all over the place. I met with Dooley, Vince Dooley in Georgia. I was down in Tennessee, and I was all over the place. And on my way back, I stopped at North Carolina State, and I had my resume. It was all prepared and everything, and I gave it to the secretary, and she said the coach will be out in a couple of minutes. And so I waited patiently, and out came the coach, and my resume was in his hand now, but it was folded into like 90 million pieces. So it was about this big now. And he called me in, and he sat with me for well over an hour. And we talked about football and what I'm doing, et cetera, et cetera. And that coach was Lou Holtz, who was at NC State at the time. True story, later on, I left. He had no graduate assistantships to give me, et cetera. I left, and I went back home. I'd say a month later, I got a small little note from him saying, "Great to meet you. If I can do anything for you in the future, sincerely, Lou Holtz." So from that time on, wherever he was, I was his fan, whether it was the Jets or mainly Notre Dame. With that, I came back home, and my head coach at the time, Bob Sawyer at Kinnelon, he was an All-American at Wyoming. He goes, "Listen," he goes, "the new coach out there, Fred Akers, let me give him a call and see if they need anybody." And I was going to go to Georgia. I had been accepted to the graduate program. And sure enough, he calls up, and Akers says, "Come on out here. We can use him." Next thing I know, I'm driving out to Wyoming. And I'm saying to myself, what am I doing here?
Here we go.
There, I had probably one of the two best experiences I've had in coaching. I met with Coach Akers, but I met with the entire staff, and they were all great guys. I mean, really great guys. So I was there for a year, and Coach Akers wanted me to stay, but I thought I was going to be the basketball coach back home in Kinnelon. So I decided I wasn't going to stay. And plus the fact in Wyoming, you're in the middle of nowhere, and I needed a beach. So I knew that was the place
Always
for me in the long run. Anyway, I came home, didn't get the basketball job right away. But I eventually, what happened was I was still coaching football, but I eventually gravitated more towards basketball, which wasn't my main sport, not even close, but I could see things a little bit better than what I could in football. And I tell the story about going back to Wyoming. We had our line coach, Leon Manley. Leon could stand there and in practice his head would bob, and he would watch every player on the line if they ran a play, and then he could tell every player what they did or didn't do. Well, that wasn't my ability. So I knew maybe I should be looking for something else. Anyway, I got involved with basketball. I've been lucky enough to be at, as I came on for a long, long time. I became the athletic director there. I was teaching in middle school at the time, and they needed somebody who was going to be around all the time. And I decided I wasn't going to take the job. And then I found out that I had no choice. I'm going to take the job. A bunch of years later, it became, it was something that really turned out well for me. And I began coaching basketball, and I was lucky enough to have some success. You're only as good as the players you have. And I had some really good players along the way, so that's where I am. And then I left Kinnelon close to 20 years ago, and Mountain Lakes came a calling, and they wanted me to coach there. And at first I said no. And then I knew the principal there, Lou Ludwig, and he called me in and we talked, and I decided, okay, I'm going to go there. And it's one of the best decisions that I ever made, because it's a great place to coach, great people there.
Cool.
And I just recently resigned just this past year. So I tell everybody, I haven't retired. I've just resigned. So you never know when you're going to find me someplace,
Right.
So that's it in a nutshell.
That's a great story. It's funny. I played for Lou Holtz's son at UConn.
Get out of here.
Yes.
Oh,
So
wow.
that was my first 2 years. It was a guy, Tom Jackson. He got fired. And then Skip Holtz came from he was like the youngest OC in Division I at Notre Dame under his father.
Uh-huh.
And then they hired him at UConn as the head coach. He was 29 years old. He was the head coach at UConn. He coached me in my last few years at UConn. So I'm very familiar with the Holtz family. Obviously know his son really well. I've only met Lou a couple of times. He came and spoke to us before a couple of games, and which was pretty cool. But yeah, I know his son very well. Obviously, I haven't played with him, played for him, and stayed with touch him over a year. And now his son is the U.S. He was the coach at the Birmingham
Stallions.
Yeah, the Stallions. Yeah, and they won like the last two USFL. I think it's USFL championships. But yeah, that's really wild. Yes, I played for him. He was a great coach. Great. He was young at the time, figuring it out. But I mean, he was like, he always had, even at 29, he had this.
Right, you could see it.
Yeah, you knew he was going to be really successful as a coach. Like, he had that foundation, and he had that way about him. And that even though at 29, you could only imagine guy being head coach of like a Division I program at 29, he was figuring it out as much as anybody else. And but he was so good that, like, commanding leadership wise, even at 29 years old.
There's something to be said about osmosis. All right. And
yes.
when you have a father who I considered him a really, really good coach. I mean, a great coach, as a matter of fact, a motivator, a guy like that. But when you're around sports like that, and you get involved like that, you have a better sense of the game. And no doubt he wasn't he? He was some other place too. James Madison? No, not James Madison.
East Carolina.
That's where I remember him at East Carolina.
He actually left UConn, and he had, like, the first year he was there, he was 4-7. Then I think we were like 8-3, 5-6. Then he was like 10-2, and I think like 10-2 or something like that. And then his father went to South Carolina.
Yeah.
came back. You know what I
Right.
mean? Came back out of retirement, and he asked him to be his OC. So he went to South Carolina,
Yeah.
and then he went from there to East Carolina to South Florida to Louisiana Tech,
Right.
and then left Louisiana Tech, and that's where he's now at USFL for the
Wow.
last couple of years. But yeah,
Wow.
he won everywhere he was at. He never. What's interesting is that he never. Well, it doesn't mean never because he's still actually pretty young. It's what's crazy is he's been coaching.
Right. If he started at 29,
He's
you look
not
at
that much
Saban,
older
who's
than me.
70.
He's
It's
in his
like,
mid 50s, late 50s, but not. But obviously for coaching, he's still relatively young. But he's been a head coach for like almost 30 years, so it's pretty
It's amazing.
crazy.
Yeah.
At such a young age to be a head coach for that long in college. So who knows? He might end up at a huge program again one day. But it's interesting because he never decided. Like I think he could have, but he kept kind of staying in those. I don't know what you would call it. It's group of five, I guess you call it now, like group of five.
Power Five.
And but I think after his USFL success, I wonder if he'll eventually make the move to pro, which I think is interesting. I mean NFL because he's already
Well,
jumped into the
it
pros.
sort of is the pros, don't you think?
Right, it is the pros,
Yeah.
right? Which I thought was interesting because I always thought of him as a college guy, and when he took the job at in the USFL, I was like, oh, he's always kind of that guy. Like he's always, and his father was like that way too, I guess. He's always looking for that new challenge,
Mhm.
and which I think is part of what makes coaches, whether they stay at one place for a long time, like Saban has now, or they move to different places. That ability to figure out a new challenge to keep yourself motivated. That's a big thing in being successful as a coach.
I'll tell you this. I was at Kinlawn for 34 years. I was, and I coached a long time there. I started out in football and then did football and basketball. Became the athletic director for 24 years, and at the end, towards the end, and Michael, my nephew, had something to do with this too because he had been working with some of my players because he's a strength and conditioning guy and a very, very one of the best. As a matter
We've
of
had
fact.
him on, Coach. We've had him on.
Yeah, no,
Coach
I
is
know.
familiar with
My
him.
sister told me you
Yeah.
had him on, and and so one of the reasons I left is because of some of the things that happened there and some of the things behind my back. But and I went to Mountain Lakes and it was 18 years there, and there's a reason why, and you might ask me more questions. The reason why I lasted 18 years at Mountain Lakes and I lasted 34 some odd years at Kinlawn, and I've been coaching for 53 years. And it's pretty simple. It really is. Treat your players halfway decent. I think that's, we can talk about a lot of things. You want to, what's my success? I don't know how successful I am. I'm being honest with you. All right. I am only as good as the players I have. I've had one season where I was 1-19 in basketball, and I have other seasons where we won state sectional championships. So, but I think in the long run, you're not going to make everybody happy. All you got to do is look at what happened in the in our government the past couple of days. Not going to make everybody happy, but you want to strive to make everybody successful somehow, some way, and treat them with fairness. They may not agree with you in terms of playing time, et cetera, but treat them with fairness and treat them with some dignity, and you're going to be in great shape as a coach. So,
yeah, I think that's an incredibly important thing, and I think for a lot of younger coaches, I think that's a thing that a lot of them are because there's so much other noise around coaching, and you don't have as many guys that get into coaching for the exact reasons that you might have gotten into coaching. And I got into coaching. Like a lot of times, guys nowadays, and guys even in the old days, they're like, "Hey, you got to coach this because you're a teacher." But nowadays, teachers are more like, "Hey, I'd like to 3 p.m. hits, 2:30 hits. I'd like to go home." Right. So, but I think what you're bringing up is such, and that's really the end of rewarding thing is that when players know that you care about them and that you're doing your best to do right by them, and
yeah.
at the same time, obviously you're figuring out what's best for the especially in team sports, right? You're trying to figure out what's best for the overall team too, but at the same time that you're doing that, individually, they understand that you care about them and you're trying to do what's best for them as well at the same time. I think, win or lose. And I think that's a big thing that gets caught. Like, people are so, you have to do, we have to win. It's like, no, you've got to do these things first. That gives you the opportunity to win. But if you don't do these things, even if you win in the short run, because you have, like you said, I always agree with this. If you don't get the players, you're not winning anything. Okay. It doesn't, the coaches who think that it's the other way around, they're going to be out of coaching pretty quick, because eventually you're not going to have all the guys. And you're going to be like, well, wait a minute, I'm not a good coach. No, you're the same coach you were yesterday. It was players change and abilities change, and you just got to keep trying to do right by them, giving them the best opportunity they can. And then, listen, you obviously want to be as good as coach as you can to help them learn more. But if the players respect you and understand where you're coming from, I think that everybody's always moving in the right direction. And who doesn't want to win every championship every year? That's the reality. That is not the case for probably 99.9% of the coaches. Even great coaches have down years. So, and great programs have, when you're in and you're an AD at Mountain Lakes, right? Great situation for most of the athletic department from a standpoint of the ability for the kids to have great opportunities. Those are really there. And so, but you have to care about the kids.
Yeah. Oh, it's so true. So true. Are we frozen?
I feel like, are we frozen? I feel like
I think we're good. No, we're good, right?
Well, no, we're good. No, you and I are good, but
yeah, you're good, coach. You're good.
Am I frozen?
Your picture is.
Oh, but I'm still talking.
Oh yeah, you're talking.
You still have audio, but you're good. No, listen, it's one of the things that I've look. I grew up obviously playing against Coach in Kinnelon, Butler and Kinnelon, same zip code, but two very different socio-dynamic type of places, right? Absolutely. You're talking about, but the same, and you're talking about then now going from a Kinnelon situation to a Mountain Lake situation. Look, at the end of the day, kids are kids, and it's kind of what it is. They're going to use sports to kind of get that release. And in terms of who do you want leading them, right? As a coach, you need to, and coach, you and I can kind of keep hammering it out here, and we've had these discussions numerous times about, coaching this or coaching that or coaching it. Coach the person, right? Coach the kid itself, coach who that person is, right? It's especially nowadays, and you've been in this game for so long to see the transition of kind of the youth of now. It's very different than the kids you coached 20 years ago. I mean, hell, even 10 years ago, right?
Yeah, you know what, Atrenis, to a great extent, I agree. All right. The kids it's just a different time. And it's been changed by what we're on right now, a computer or your phone or whatever. And the expectation level sometimes has changed. And I we get back to, give me the trophy because I participated.
Right.
Which drives me nuts. But I will say this, kids will work hard. Players will work hard. You can push them. All right. And I watch it at Mountain Lakes. I mean, we have some great coaches there. We really, really do.
Yeah, across the board. Sports at
Mountain
Lakes.
Really do. We're really, really lucky. And,
absolutely.
And when I first got there, Doug Wilkins was the football coach, and Tim Ford was lacrosse coach, and he's another great coach. And you just listen to those guys, and they demand respect, and they get it. And you can still do that. You can still work kids hard. There's other areas, that the kids have changed. It's not, when I started coaching basketball, all right, I'm coaching as a freshman coach at Kinnelon High School. I would go scouting and I'd come back and I couldn't get into the gym because it was sold out. Now it's changed because there's so many sports, girls sports, boys sports, but they just add this and add that, which I'm all for. Don't get me wrong. But it's changed in a lot of ways. This is more of a me world, I think, than a we world. And that's the thing you fight against when you're coaching. Everybody wants to go to the next level, play at the next level. They want to do this, they want to do that. Moms and dads think, oh, my son is a D1 player, et cetera. You know what? That's the me part of it. And it's a struggle sometimes to get your team to be a we. And when you're together, I mean, it's hard to beat when you're together, and it's doable. It's doable. I got to interject this. I think back when I first started learning basketball, I used to go to clinics and I used to sleep in my van.
Yeah.
I'd go to a clinic and sleep in my van because I wasn't making that much money. I would go to the clinic. I'd sleep in my van. I'd wake up the next day. I'd go into the gym or wherever I could. If I could, I'd take a shower. If not, I'd just wash up and then I'd go to the clinic and do whatever. And I'd do the same thing that night, grab a bite to eat. And then the next day, and then, you do whatever you can to try and learn that way. I don't know. It's the same now with coaches. You know what? I mean, you didn't have to pay me, to go to a clinic. I'll pay for myself because I want to get better.
Yeah.
Now I find it's more like, you better pay me for this.
Yeah. Coach,
I'm not going.
It's definitely something that's changed, right? And for me, I was raised old school, right? Like I want to learn. I want to get better. That's the only way you get better is, continue to
Right.
educate yourself and kind of go from there and learn and whatnot. And we had my former special teams coach from Montclair State, Mike Sirion, and he was on and he said the exact same thing. He said, look, we used to off season was clinic this, clinic here, clinic here. If you're not teaching one as you get down the road, you are now, as you're coming up, you're going to them and you're just a sponge. You're sitting there, you're taking everything. It might not be, for football wise, hey, I'm a defensive coach. It might not even be a defensive clinic, right? But you're in there and you're just learning, right? Yeah. And now that was, hey, it's on your own dime. It's this, it's that, but it didn't matter because you knew eventually that would help you in the long run or just get you better, maybe put you in a better job for a job, something like that, put you in a better position. But, it's very different now where, like you said, and I've seen it a lot since I've come down here to South Jersey. From the north, up north, it was just, this is what we do type thing. Down here, it's like, it wasn't like that. It wasn't football all year round. Got to do this, focus. If you were an assistant coach because sometimes like I see it like, all right, it's football season's over. Like I'll see you next August. And it's not like you can't do that.
No, that's definitely changed. I mean, there's no question about it. It becomes a year round thing. I mean, for me, it would be opening up the gym couple nights a week during the summer, trying to play in the summer league. We used to go to camp when I was at Kinlaw. I would take my players to camp as a team.
Yes, you could go away.
Mountain Lake's a little bit harder because you have football starts.
So many of those.
Football's already started, and I have so many football players. And then soccer started, and then lacrosse is year round. So It's really hard to get those players, to go to a camp like we used to.
Right. And we talked about it like too, I think the whole, you're trying to build your team and you're trying to do these other things, but kids now, like they used to only get that information from a parent or a coach, right? Yeah. Now they can go on their phone, type in whatever they want. And before you know it, well, coach, like, why are we doing it that way? Cause I can see it. We do it this way, you know? That's the instant access I think they have now to those things that used to be somewhat coveted and only coached by a coach. Yeah. And now every Tom, Jerry, and Billy over here is a coach and, has their own whatever, just because you can set up your social media page doesn't mean that what you're actually coaching or teaching is what it is, So I think that's changed a little bit,
and you know what, as long as you're in this, you're still always learning. I mean, to this day, I'm always learning. And it's one of the reasons, too. We're sitting here on this computer now. This computer, when I'm coaching, I mean, I'm on it all the time. Either it's preparing a practice and then changing it because I didn't like how the practice was or whatever, or watching video, which that's the other thing that's changed a lot. And I don't know how I did it. I was an athletic director and a basketball coach at Kinlaw.
Right. I don't know how
some way I prepared. And I didn't have a secretary when I was there.
No, wow. No, it was, he ran the whole boat. It was
so now I look back on it and go, how did I do that? Because now, there's a big difference. In those days, you go out and you scout and you couldn't video, so you'd write stuff down and you'd prepare. Then you were allowed to video, which helped me, because the more I see something, the more I compare, I think I can defend it. And that's what you're trying to do, basically. And they're trying to do the same thing to you. Less and less, I go out still scouting in basketball. All right. I want to see that team play in person, so I have an idea that when I leave, usually it doesn't matter who I see. I always go, I don't know how we're going to beat those guys.
Yeah.
We wind up doing okay. But there's very few coaches that I see when I go scouting. I mean, there's one in particular, and he's a good coach, and he's done well, and he's at Mendham right now, and he's the only guy, and he goes out and he doesn't video. I video, but he goes out and he's writing stuff in his book and everything, and you don't see that anymore because of video, and video takes a lot of your time. You're sitting there and you're looking at video and you're breaking it down. You're going, and then you got to look at your own team's video too. Then you got to prepare a practice, and then and I look online all the time for something else that might be, hey, this might be good for my team. This might be a good play for our team. So it's you put in a lot of time, a lot of work. I mean, if you're doing it for money, you're in the wrong business. If you're doing it because you love what you're doing, and I always said, I really like my kids. I really, really do. Yeah. Even the ones that, that may not like me, I tell the kids this, I love you. All right. And I tell them, we talk about this too. And I do it on occasion. I don't do it every day, but I go, listen, tonight when you go home, tell your mom and dad, thank you. And I love you, and we don't do enough of that, I don't think, but that's just me.
Yeah, and part of it is the family dynamics have changed so much too, which is a monumental difference. It's who's with who, parent and stuff, and it's just kind of how society has become, which makes it harder for the kids because you got more people pulling you in different directions, and as opposed to you might have a united voice in the old days.
Yeah.
Even if mom and dad disagreed, they end up being united on a certain thing. But if parents are apart or someone's not there, or it's a grandparent, that's, so you might hear multiple voices, and sometimes it's harder for the kid too. I mean, these all kind of play dynamics. One of the things I thought was really interesting you said about football versus basketball when you were coming up was that that the way that you saw the basketball, the court, obviously, football, the field, and you felt like you saw certain things in basketball. It was either easier for you, or you just had a feel for it. What is it like that you really, when you're coaching basketball, that dynamic that you feel when you're out there is like a differentiator for you that really gravitates you to basketball?
Well, probably one is 11 on 11 and the other one's 5 on 5.
Yeah.
Right? That starts it right there. And again, I look back at Leon Manley and the ability he had. Coaching over a period of time, and I started out with football, and I coached football for like 14 years. And I was an assistant coach, had some really, really good players. As a matter of fact, Kurt Allen, he was a linebacker when I was coaching at the time, and on the defense, and he was a heck of a player. Went on to Penn State, played in the pros for a bunch of time. That I couldn't see things as well as some other coaches might be able to. Like if I was covering a line or coaching a line, what adjustments would you have to make? And you got to make adjustments. Whereas basketball, I don't know. To me, it was like a chess match in a lot of ways. And I coached against some really, really great coaches that they do something, then you do something. And the other thing too is, like in basketball, it's always, don't look at what's going on right now. Look ahead to maybe one or two plays ahead, or if it's a timeout, what do they think you're going to do? Maybe we should do this. It's little things like that I think it's a little bit easier. Football, I think a lot of it's halftime adjustments that, and the other thing too, and I've often said this in coaching both sports, football, it's one or two plays that a coach calls or doesn't call, or that a player does or doesn't do. It's only a couple of plays that make a difference. In basketball, Yeah, there's a couple of plays here and there, but over the period of time and how many times you're going up and down the floor, I had a kid a couple of years ago. We had just beaten a team by 40 the week before. We now go and play them in a state tournament. We wound up losing. We wound up losing, and at the end of the game, they made supposedly fouled 3-point shooter. He made all three. They're now up by 2. We run a play, get it at half court, run another play. One of our players gets fouled. They foul him. He goes to the line. And I was in the gym with a kid just a couple of weeks before that, and he made like 30 in a row. Missed both of them. All right. So now the game's over. He's in tears. And I'm consoling him, of course. But he didn't lose a game there.
Right.
We lost our inability to adjust to what they did in this next game, and we didn't shoot as well as we did when we beat them by 40. That's another factor, but that's the way it works sometimes, But to me, it's more of a chess match. Football, I love football. I go to all our high school games still. I love college football. Pros are okay, but I love college football. I love the excitement of it, and I love the excitement of high school football too.
You also get a little spoiled when you go down and see Michael's team because Heritage. Coach, we've been like it.
Whole different ball game, as you're no doubt, because I know you talk to Mike. I'm heading down there soon. I'm sticking around because I'm going to do some work at the football games, the next 2 games to help the site manager. And awesome. So then I'll be going down there and hopefully I'll catch his last regular season game and in some of the tournament. The ability level there is insane. I went last year, his first year as head coach. I went to his first game. I'll never forget this. I go to the first game. It's up in Georgia, and it's against a team that, it's the Florida, Georgia, whatever. Okay. And I go there and it's a stadium. It's nice. But as I'm going there, I see this structure that's being built and it's huge. And I'm going, I wonder what that is. So now I go to there's a doubleheader in the first game. These teams are playing and there's lightning. So they got to delay the game. His game's supposed to start at 8. It probably started at 10:30. I'm standing underneath and I start talking to some people from Georgia. And I go, what's that structure out there? Oh, well, the high school's building an indoor facility for football. I'm going, you got to be kidding me. Anyway, so now that game gets over. Here comes this team, the home team. I thought he was playing Alabama. First, they're dressed in all red, and there must have been 150 of them. They cover the entire half of the field, so you're warming up, and you got clusters of groups all over the place, right? And they're huge. And I'm going, oh, boy, it's going to be a tough game. Heritage killed them. All right. Then I go the next week, and they're playing a team from California with a quarterback who's the number 1 quarterback. I had no idea about this. I watched the game on ESPN. I'm watching the game, and he's the number 1 quarterback. He's going to USC. His receiver's going to USC. They got a bunch of players. Killed him. Absolutely killed him again.
He's got a different, and we talk about it all the time, obviously being Jersey compared to Mike, down there and Heritage and whatnot. It's just, and we always talk about like the state itself, like where you play.
Speed that he has available to him.
Unbelievable. He's got a 4x1 track team go.
Yeah. How's about the kid who's at Miami now? Who was going to Ohio State, but now he's at Miami. I won't get into the reasons why, but you probably.
Well, we know why those things are nowadays.
We know how that works.
Yeah,
but listen, I always think, like, obviously, and we talk about this all the time, just the ability to have those high level players, but then create that relationship with them that tells me that he's a good coach. Is that every one of these guys, whether they go Division I, whether they go 2, whenever they're done, they come back and go to Mike, right? They come back and they train with Coach Smith and they do all that. You know what I mean? Talk about his NFL guys. They all come back in the something that, Coach Schuman and I always talk about is creating that sense of culture. And he's going through it now because he's coached in his son's 8U team. So it's been, so we're thinking like, hey, and it's just, listen, that shows me that those guys are willing to come back and kind of always want to be around him because he does the right thing. So, but the program itself, come on, you're talking.
The program's unbelievable, but I will say this about Michael. he's unbelievable what he's done. I mean, I remember way back when he started in his he started in the trunk of his car.
Yeah.
And next thing I know, he's training Brandon Knight, and he goes, "Hey, you want to come down and work him out?" So I said, "Sure." And
You're
so
like,
I said, "Sure." So I go down there. I couldn't believe how fast they were. And I'm going to do this little drill. I'm going to go, okay, and put the ball on the backboard. I want you to go up, grab it, and put it back in. And they go, "Can we dunk it?" And I go, "Yeah, sure," because I didn't have guys who could dunk in high school.
Not a Group 1 Kittle, buddy.
Yeah. So I go, "Sure." Boom, boom, boom. And then I watch him, and Michael has some quickness too. And Michael's covered him.
Yes.
Brandon just, he was so fast and so quick. And needless to say, he went to Kentucky, and then he's playing in the pros, and he's done a great job. But Michael has really, really done a great job. And he's a good coach. And two, he's starting to get gray hair like myself.
It's not. Yeah, let's talk about this now. Like I didn't sign up for this.
Yeah. Well, you know what? The key is to have your hair when you get to be my age.
That's it. If I can have that, I'm good. I'll go silver fox status. It's worked for you.
You got great hair. Great hair.
But listen, we also, when we did talk to Mike, like on the podcast, remember, Coach, how many times he references basketball as part of his football workout stuff. He's talking about, hey, you're a receiver trying to get open. Well, that's going outside and one-on-one basketball, So, from those days of him being your assistant at Kinnelon, he's taken that and used that. And I think that's something we've talked about too, because, Coach Schuman's son he's an excellent football player. I think he's probably a better basketball player or will be because of, but really, it's just one of those things that they kind of both help each other.
Yeah. You know what? It really is the truth. I mean, there's matter of fact, I went to him prior to this past season. First I went down there spring ball and watched them do some different stuff. And, you go into the gym there, it's like being in a college. But then he had Marcus, he took Marcus and showed me some of the different things they do to work on speed and quickness and stuff like that. Which I think you get more time down there because you're with those kids during the spring because they're football players.
Yep, we talked about it.
On Mountain Lakes, it's you're in between football and lacrosse. Right.
Yeah, but, lacrosse, like we said, lacrosse by you is monstrous. Like it's No, that's what they do.
Cool. Yeah. What else?
Well, I'll tell you. So I love the basketball and football thing, and I do want to ask you a question, which we touched a little bit about with the one kid going to Miami over Ohio State. But what I thought was is and I've been trying to figure it out, but I'm curious your thoughts on it. Like basketball, in the course of a game, when you were talking about like the one team you beat by 40, and then all of a sudden they beat in the playoffs. The runs are a huge deal. Like a team going on a run and just rolling changes the game. Like almost, it could change in 2 minutes off of a run, and a game could change like on a dime like that. Where football, if a game's back and forth, a run could literally only be one touchdown, right? Like a big drive or a big play, and you could have the opportunity to come back. So what you were saying about like one or two plays can make a call, or a player making a play can make a big difference, because you could have a team, and I talked to Derek about this, like I've won games where a team was beating the what out of me, but we were able to hang around, and then a player made a play, or we happened to make a good call, and we won the game, even though the other team was beating us up. In basketball, if a team is making runs on you, it's going to be hard to
you only get so many timeouts.
Right.
Yeah.
You're really not going to be able to stop the thing rolling downhill, which I think is so interesting. I think that's what I think. Like when people watch basketball coaches, or people always like, and one of my favorite, just being from Bergen County, Mahoney from Bogota. He lives on every play, like every single play. And I used to always say, like, gee, in basketball, there's so many back and forths. How does a coach, because I was always a football coach, and how does a coach live on every single play like we would in football? Why is it such a big deal in basketball? Then it dawned on me is that, like, if you can get in a run or stop a run, like that could be the game right there. You stop a couple of runs, or you get a couple of runs, and it's a game changer. Whereas football, if you don't like, you're going to have to try and stop every single thing all the time. There is no, most of the time, unless a team blows you out, there isn't a run. You know what I mean? In a game,
Right. Well, I look at basketball, and one of the things that's changed in basketball is a 3-point play. I mean, you can be up by, we were trailing by 17 in the state tournament. This is the year we won a section. By 17, going in the fourth quarter, we wound up winning going away. We had a kid who Jake Shanky, started burying threes. And you think they'd come out and cover them, and they didn't. We kept on burying threes, and it went from one thing to the other. And once you get to a point, it's over. And you as a coach, when you're coaching, don't coach don't coach to lose, coach to win. Sometimes you wind up coaching to lose because, well, we'll hold on to the ball a bit longer.
Yeah, you stay too tight.
Do that. And so those are the things you got to look at. It's stop. It's my dog. It's a series of.
I was hoping it's not your girlfriend. I mean, geez.
No, it's a pit bull. I'll let them in here and they'll be all over the place. No, it can be a series of runs, or you can get back in the game with you're down by 10 and you make 3 balls, and all of a sudden it's a 1-point game, and now you're going, right. Oh my God. So it's a little bit different now than it used to be when there was no 3-point line. But again, and football's that way when you think about it. Although like we just played a team this past week, it was 21-0 in the first quarter, and it was over. I mean, it was over because you could see they weren't going to stop us at all, in which they didn't. And that's the way it works sometimes. They're similar in a lot of ways and different in a lot of ways, I think, football. But in terms of your ability, I mean, the things you're going to do on a basketball court, it's the same thing. It's the same thing with a quarterback. Quarterback sees the field. Quarterback can throw the ball, but sees the field and has ability. It's like a point guard, And Derek could probably tell you this. One of my biggest influences on me, all right, was a guy named Daryl Holleran. Daryl was the head basketball coach at Morris Catholic. He left and he went down to San Antonio to be a head coach down there in a small school. Then he got the job at Pace University. Later on, he called me up. He said, "How'd you like to be my first assistant?" I went there for a year, took a leave from Kinnelon, right? A couple years later, well, I left. He wanted me to stay, but it's like everything else. Akers wanted me to stay too, but you know what? I got a job where I was making $12,000 going into the city in New York. I was paying that in tolls to get in there to play basketball. And so I didn't, but I kept on in touch with him, and I kept on scouting and doing things for him. And then he called me up one day and he said, "Hey, come on in. We're running the Princeton offense." And I said, "Okay." So I came in. He gave me Riley's defensive booklet, which I still have, which I used to a great extent with this team, my 95 team. And then Daryl showed me the Princeton offense, the beginnings of it, and I took it and ran with it. And I took a group of kids when they were sophomores, and I said, "Listen, it's the first time I'm teaching this, all right?" But the point I'm getting to, that we ran that offense and we got better and better and better at it, and it gave us the ability to control the game and play against teams that are better than us, or that are really quicker than us, or whatever.
Group one stuff, Dave. So Dave went to Saddlebrook, so he gets that whole group one mentality type. So Coach wants to win 32-29. And he's gonna hold on to the ball forever. And you're gonna get so bored, Dave, when you're playing his teams, that you get pissed off. And then now they've got you because now you're pissed, and they play great defense, and they want to come down and hold the ball the entire time until they get the open shot. You're just like, "What are we doing? Like, this is annoying." And then you make some stupid play, and then before you know it, it's 32-16, and it's the
first time we ever ran it, we played Cedar Grove, and we wound up, and Frank Giovannucci was another guy who controlled everything, and the game was over, and we won like 34-33. And we were getting on the bus, and the last person on was Neil Owens, who later became a 1,000-point scorer for me, and he goes, "Coach, this'll work." They were sophomores at the time. Junior year we got better, and senior year they were very, very good. Junior and senior year, they were very, very good. And they got better and better and better at it. And now I wish I had the knowledge that I have now of that particular offense, which I've sort of shied away from it somewhat because all kids want to do now. You talk about change. They want to run up and down the floor, up and down the floor.
Well, look at football. Everybody wants to spread everything out. It's the same thing. Everybody wants the fast break now, which is why, those guys that had done that stuff like us at Butler, where we spread it out early, it was attractive, right? Like you think about Coach Fink up at West Milford basketball. He was always like a run and gun kind of shooting guy.
Yeah. So this was something that we could do to sort of slow that pace down. And that's why, needless to say, in New Jersey, I'd be against the shot clock because that changes things.
You'd
and
be done.
That's
that
what
would be a lot.
Princeton.
That would change a lot for you guys if you
That's
were that offense specifically.
That's what happened with Princeton. Yep. Princeton, when they went to the shot clock now, the stuff that we would call filler, which we would cut the guy off the post and continue and look for something. Now you have to go quicker. So it's got to be fast.
Yeah, because you don't have that time to sit there
and
look.
And Dean Smith originally, that was the whole Dean Smith's hold the ball before the shot clock became a thing.
There was 4 corners. Right.
Yeah, 4 corners. Yep. He had the great point guard who would literally dribble it all around. And
there's no 4 corners anymore.
No.
It's
when he got Jordan and those guys, he moved to a much more modernized version of that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. Oh my God. That's so true.
Yeah, no, I think it's so interesting too, like matchups, like when Derek knows this, when been a head coach, I'm from like the no huddle, move fast, breakaway and plays end up breaking away because guys don't end up handling the pace, and I always thought the teams that we struggled with because of the way my style of coaching and what we kind of dictated practice was the team who held the ball and made the game like a 14-7 game where we always talk about it. This team's going to limit our possessions, and how will our kids handle the fact that instead of having, because we're trying to get as many possessions as we can, right. Instead of having 12, 13 possessions, we're going to have 6, 7 in a game. Mm-hmm. And we got to make the most of those possessions. And we've seen it where, oh no, our kids get in this, oh my God, they stopped us twice. And I see it in their head because we've coached it and they're used to the, okay, we score, maybe, we stop them, we score again. All right, now we're rolling, and all of a sudden the team holds the ball forever and we can't control, they're controlling the pace instead of us controlling the pace. And now all of a sudden we're in a dogfight, right? And it's so interesting how styles. So people that's why you have to play the game, right? You can say on paper, this team scoring all these points and they're playing this team who barely scores points. The team who's going to score points. No, because this team's going to make it difficult for this team. That's why I always loved Navy, right? Especially now they're a little different, but when the coach was there, yes, Paul Johnson, and then initially with his disciple, I forgot his name now, who was a legendary coach there. They would control the clock. So these fast break teams, they would be running that triple option, and all of a sudden, Notre Dame's in a 14-7 game with Navy, and everyone's like, oh my God, Notre Dame doesn't know how to stop the triple option. That's not the case. What the case is, they're not used to a team controlling the game. Mm-hmm. Even when they're playing big-time teams, they're used to being they're playing Ohio State, they're used to being in somewhat control of how they're doing things. Well, now Navy's controlling it, and they're like, what the heck's going on here? How are these guys that are inferior, quote-unquote, athletically controlling the game on us? And the greatest athletes, it gets in their head, and all of a sudden, they're not making the plays that they normally make. They're not getting the stops they normally got, and you're in a ball game. And I think that's what's the beauty of, you have to play the game.
Navy's a good example. Army and Navy are good examples of teams that you're not going to have the ability level. So what do? How do you do that? I'm listening to a podcast right now of the Montclair Randolph game. All right. I just listened to the 4th podcast, which was of the game itself and what happened at the end and the timing, the whole 9 yards and the field goal that was kicked. And because I knew I was Jack Davies, who was the coach here at the time, good friend. When I was in Wyoming, we brought him out to Wyoming to speak at one of our clinics.
Wow, really?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. He came out. It was great having him. And you know, I felt bad for him because he was a great coach.
Great.
But you listen to that and you go, oh my God. But there's a great example. That's a great example too. But
Yeah.
Randolph, you know, they won 49 in a row. Why?
Yeah.
They weren't the biggest, but
Nope.
it's what they run, and we still run it at Butler. I mean Butler. We still run it at Mountain Lakes right now. Right? We run a wing T, and we have three really
I'm
good
playing
wings.
it this week down here.
Yeah, we run. We'll do other stuff, and we'll spread you a little bit more, and we'll throw the ball a little bit more. But for the most part, that's what we do, and it gives you that advantage. The smaller guys can beat the bigger guys.
Successful with it.
And that's what the Princeton offense was like that. Conversely, all right, the run and sting, you ran it in high school, all right? That's the Princeton offense, okay? And I'll explain to you how. One, you spread them out, number one. Number two, you read what's going on. You know, if this guy, if the safety goes this way and this guy's cutting this way and you're throwing to him. So you're doing reads. And you guys were ahead of your time, all right? Well, the Princeton offense is the same thing. It's okay, we're dribbling over. If you're overplaying, you got to be smart enough to go back door. If the back door pass is open, great. If it's not, you go to the next thing. If you come over here and you want to pass over here and you can't, you go the other way and you run something else. And it happens quick. Kirill took that stuff to the pros, and the pros use a lot of it. If you watch UConn play, the girls, which I watch a lot of, all right, they run a lot of Princeton stuff. They really, really do. So I've often said this. There's 100 different ways or 1,000,000 different ways to skin a cat.
Yeah.
You know, so you pick your poison. I'm old school to a great extent. I know I am. Okay, and that's okay. But I've had to adjust too. We run a little bit more than we've ever run. When I first got to Mountain Lakes, going to bring the Princeton offense. Now it ain't working. You need a good center, and we didn't have one at the time. But by the end, I had two kids that really got it. This past year, we weren't a great team. We didn't really have any size. But at the end, I had 5 guys that came together instead of me. It was we. And we weren't big. We wound up 500 the second half of the season after going 1-10 to start because all of our guys are football players. Mm-hmm. All right, but no excuse. But they came together and they had an idea. So we knew we had to spread the floor out. We didn't have a big guy inside, so we brought the big guy outside on offense, and hopefully their big guy would come out too, and then we'd have something to be able to drive to the basket, et cetera, and it worked. And it worked because those guys were willing to do that. So,
Well, I think, on top of it too, like Coach, you said, also, and Dave and I, we talk about it. It's, you need to adjust to what you have, right? And that's just part of the whole, hey, if you want to be a successful coach, then look, this might be what you do, and you can keep those pillars of what you do. But at the same time, you better start branching off a little bit. And also a little bit with today's kid, you got to play the game a little bit, right? Like, you got to let them do a little this or a little of that, give them some freedom. Now, I'm a firm believer in they have to earn that right to do that. They have to, in terms of, put the work in and do all that other stuff before. But absolutely, I think you the ability to adjust, right? Not only kids to the other team, but coaches, right? But you have to have that knowledge to adjust, right? And that's something we talked about. Like,
you have to have the willingness to adjust too. It just can't be my way or the highway. I mean, I like to think that I'll listen to players. If I had a great kid last year, I mean, he's the smartest kid I've ever had in a basketball court. I mean, really. And he would tell me sometimes this or this and whatever, and I would listen to him. He gave me an inbounds play at one time. We'd be impressed. We're playing at Dover, and he goes, "Coach, let's do this. Put this guy here." I go, "Okay, let's do it." We did it. Boom, he got it, scored.
Nice.
So you know what? You have to be a little bit flexible. I am to a certain extent. So, and I think that's really important as a coach. We're talking about coaches and what makes a good coach or a bad coach. And when you think about it, a good coach will win if he has the talent. A bad coach won't win even if he has the talent. So you'll have a pretty good idea somehow, some way. Can somebody coach or not coach? Can you do the job or not do the job? Daryl Holleran, who was at Pace when I coached with him, had more to do with my success than probably anybody. Not only the Princeton offense, but we weren't very good the year I was there. The year after I left, they got really good. And I did some scouting for him then. But he could take, the old saying is, he could take chicken manure and make chicken salad out of it.
Yeah.
He was a really good coach. And a true story, we always kept in touch. And at the end, he was one of the finalists for the job at West Point. He wound up not getting the job. They gave it to a coach who was recommended by Krzyzewski, and rightfully so. But prior to that, he said, listen, if I get the job, would you come with me? And my answer was, yes, of course you would. I mean, I'm a high school coach, but I would do that. And unfortunately, didn't get the job. And then a couple of years later, even bigger, unfortunately, he was coaching at halftime. He passed away of a heart attack.
Oh,
yeah. And a great guy, a guy that, man, I learned so much in 1 year's time being with him than I probably did being with anybody else. And the same thing when I was in Wyoming. I learned a lot from those guys about organization. I learned a lot about football, not enough to make me a great football coach. But, and you want to hear that funny story too? Akers asked me to stay. I told him, no, I'm going to go home. The year after, they wound up playing in the Fiesta Bowl. All right. And not that it was like at the level it is now, but they played Oklahoma and they got killed. Year after that, they leave, the entire staff. Think about this now. The entire staff leaves and goes to Texas. And a year or two later, they won a national championship. And now people are going, oh, you should have stayed.
Yeah, of course I should have stayed.
You know what? Listen, you make your decisions.
right.
And you sort of stick by it. And you want to know something? It's worked out for me very, very well.
You're right where everybody, you're always right where you need to be at that time is my thing. And coach will, adjust to it too, learning from other guys, some of the guys that, when he started out as a head coach at Saddlebrook and then took a couple years off and went and coached at Old Tapan for a little bit, right? Like those guys, or, he's real close with the guys from Riverdale, like those other coaches that from what he learned, you're right. And coach, you could speak on it more. I mean, I know you always talk about how those guys had such an impact on how you became a coach moving forward. Right. I mean, like same with me. I mean, I've been fortunate enough to be around great guys my entire career, from a player's standpoint to who I've coached with, where I've coached. That stuff has all had a major impact in terms of how I coach today.
Yeah. You know what? I think back, it's funny because I thought about this. I thought maybe you might say something like this. Who had a big impact on you? Well, those guys did, the guys I just mentioned. And there was my high school football coach, a guy named Bill Smith. Bill Smith was, I think he wanted to kill me a couple of times because I got in trouble in school. But he was the guy that would grab you by the face mask and wring you out. But he'd also tell you how good you did when you did well. And
I think you got to have a happy medium.
And that really stuck with me. It really, really did in terms of being a coach. I was more of a wild man when I was younger, and I was a football. Let's get going, yeah. When you're in basketball, you really can't do that to start a game. You can't go in there. We're gonna do this. You can't do that. I mean, because these guys, you got to keep them calm and concentrate on what they're doing. They don't want to be up there all hyper and throwing the ball all over the place. So you learn along the way, but. Yeah, Bill Smith had an impact on my coaching and how I would coach, et cetera. But there have been a bunch of people along the way. And I got to tell you this other story. This involves my nephew, Mike. When I had a real good team in 95, we were playing in the Meadowlands. We were playing against, believe it or not, Mountain Lakes. And we weren't playing as well as we could have. So at halftime, I brought everybody in the locker room, and I let go of a bunch of F-bombs. And so about a week later, my sister, Michael's mother, said, "Hey, can I speak to you?" I go, yeah. She goes, Michael came home and told me that at halftime you said this, this, and this. And I said, yeah, I did. She goes, these parents are trusting you with their children, to do well and to speak well and yada. And that had an impact on me. Do I use the F-bomb? I do when I'm sitting next to my coach. Get blank and blank out of here. But I know that's something I try not to do. And I know a lot of coaches still do it. But I try not to. Every now and then you may slip and then I go right away. I'm sorry. if anybody does it in practice, I don't want to hear it. But it had an impact on me in terms of, I have a responsibility. And not everybody's going to agree with me, and that's okay too. But I do have a responsibility. I have a responsibility to the kids that I'm with and I'm coaching. So I guess in that sense, I've grown up a lot.
We're always growing to an extent,
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully that always continues. It's amazing when you learn from other people, especially guys that you have respect for, and then I find what's amazing about coaching is that, like, you feel like you start to get to a point and you're like, oh, I know some things, and then someone else shows you something and you're like, oh, I never thought about it that way
Yeah,
before, and
that's
then
true.
you put it right in your toolbox, and you're like, okay, now utilize this, and then you get to a certain point, and then you learn something else that you can add to it. I tell Derek this story all the time, and I learned a ton when I wasn't that, like, I was head coach at a very young age. Then I was an assistant again, and I learned a ton. Like, when you talked about the wing T, when I went to Old Japan after being a coach for many years, they were spread and to Coach Dunn, but he was an old school wing T guy, and all the principles blocking wise was wing T. And at 40 years old, I was able to learn. Now I knew the wing T blocking scheme inside and out, and was able to put that into my kind of toolbox. But it's so amazing the different things that you're able to learn and to be able to, like, put into your toolbox, and then be able to bring out there again, and teach the kids, and then the impact that it has it's amazing. It's like you're constantly learning new things that are going to make hopefully a gigantic impact that you can then obviously help the players with. I have one quick question, and I know you Derek started talking about when I was having all kinds of monumental, I don't know what technical difficulties were going on.
It happens.
Maybe the government's spying on me. I don't know. So the recruiting today, and having been in it for a long
Yeah.
time, the things that are going on with NAL and recruiting, and how do you think it's impacting high school sports? Even putting your AD hat on, like, too. What do you think the impact is of all this stuff? And it's a positive, negative. What do you think?
We and me think about that. I mean, I got to get mine. We have kids in high school that have already gotten money. I
Yeah,
won't even
we
mention
talked about
where.
it.
All
Right.
right. Which
You're talking those soccer players, right? Like those soccer players, I mean, especially at Mountain Lakes, they have every sport under the sun. And
I don't know.
everybody only wants to look at these big ones, but some of
Yeah.
these gymnastics girls or soccer girls, or I'm telling you, it's different.
I don't know that anybody at Mountain Lakes has gotten anything like that, because we're a relatively small school, but I know in other places that's happened, and that's the nature of the beast. It's kind of funny. Name, image, likeness.
Mm-hmm.
That's the reason. No, it's not. They're just giving people money now,
Mhm.
and they can put it any way they want to put it.
Right.
And they have to straighten that out for sure. There's no question in my mind about that. And I've often looked at it this way. You have a son or a daughter, you put them through college, and you wind up with bills at the end that you got to pay. These guys that are playing at the Division I. I mean, really, they're getting a scholarship, they're getting their room, their board, the whole 9 yards. That's worth a lot of money. So I've always felt, hey, they are getting paid to a certain extent. Do I begrudge them getting more money? Nah, not really. I mean, whatever you can get, you can get. That's the way I feel about it right now. But I don't know what's going to happen with sports. I mean, you think about it. I mean, let's just take a look at football at the D1 level. I mean, kids go from one place to another. The graduate students, they play at another place. Are they going to a college for an education, or are they going just to play football and go in different places to play football? I don't know. It makes no sense to me. It really doesn't. But that's the way life is right now. So I don't know.
It's wild because I don't know if you saw it today, Derek, but the escalation is an issue. Meaning, Utah Did you see this, Derek, today? So there's a post today. Maybe it happened yesterday, but like they posted the video today. Utah's football team, they brought them in, like an alumni talked to them, and they have like whatever the Utah collective is. They brought them into the stadium, and every single player got a souped up, I can't remember if it was Ford or Dodge truck. Every
Player?
single,
The entire
every
roster.
single player got a $65,000
Car.
truck.
Yeah, like here you go. Like, well,
pickup truck.
but like,
Yep.
hey, you get your shorts and your t-shirt for practice. Here's your car.
Here's your.
Can't fit that in a stocking, bro.
I was, and I mean, I'm happy for you. Listen, if I was a kid, I'd be ecstatic.
Oh my goodness!
Right,
Like,
but it is the escalation is. So you're thinking to yourself, okay,
so now what's gonna one up everybody getting a car?
Right, Utah gave everybody a truck, right? Okay, now that's standards now set. So
hey, what's
USC gonna do now?
We thought Sam Hartman giving his team Beats headphones was a big deal. Now we're getting trucks.
They all got a truck. What is USC going to do now? USC's got to do something.
Everybody gets a bungalow right by Santa Monica Pier.
Maybe they all get to date Taylor Swift.
Used to be, fellas, it used to be, they'd show a highlight of the coach getting up and talking to his team. And because he's worked real hard, we're given such and such a scholarship, and the kids would jump around and they'd be all happy. Now they're jumping around because they all got a truck. I don't know.
It's incredible.
I was born at the wrong time. With the wrong genes, by the way, too.
I'm glad. Well, yeah, genetics, yes. I won't go into that. Thanks, Mom and Dad. Appreciate it. But I will talk about, like, I'm happy with where I was born in my time period. I was good with that.
Oh, me too.
Like, and I tell my players all the time, like, guys, I feel sorry for you, but because for as much of all of this stuff is amazing and it's awesome and it's evolution and how we progress and all this other stuff, I said I would not want to be a high school or a middle school kid with all of this stuff, with a phone, or it's this or it's that. I just, too many opportunities to get in trouble, man, and just there's too many negatives to the positives. For me, it just doesn't balance out. And I don't blame them either, because it's like, oh, you guys are always on your phone. Well, that's how they were raised. They were raised that when they started screaming and crying, nobody picked them up because mom and dad are at work. So the iPad was there for them to be whatever, I mean, these guys have gone through COVID, where they literally weren't in school for 2 years of social skills and hanging in the cafeteria and all that kind of stuff. I mean, there's just so much other stuff that has gone into it right now. Like, Coach, I don't know, because we thought that, like, Rutgers giving all of their players, right, like a kind of a salary of like, hey, everybody's getting 30 grand. Like, okay, great. Now, hell, like 30 grand, like that check means nothing. Like, this guy just got a $65,000 truck. Like, let's go.
I know.
I wonder if they're just going to recycle them. Like, once you graduate, you got to give the truck back like a book. We're going to have a big library now.
I don't know. It's crazy.
Like that, like Varsity Blues, Billy Bob's truck that got his number on the side. Every one of the players gets their truck stamped with their number. I don't know. It's crazy.
It is crazy. But you know what?
Because if you think like Alabama, Texas, Florida, like these big time schools aren't looking at that saying, "Oh damn, like we better like like this is now time. Like, what are we gonna do?" Right?
You need a cap. You need some sort of cap. I hate to see that, because I'm like,
school, right? They're gonna go be giving out fresh grills. Everybody gets a brand.
I mean, you can get whatever. Yeah, guys could get what they're gonna have some, like, and I'm for the kids getting whatever they can get.
Absolutely,
but there has to be.
You got to limit this.
There has to be a cap, otherwise, what's gonna? I mean, I think in the long run, like, I don't see how. Like, I don't know. How's Georgia State going to compete, or Jacksonville State, or
then like any of these other places? Like, now you're going to talk to kids that are like literally going to start to study finances and realize, like, hell, I can go to Florida where there's no state tax and make even more money if I go to these schools. Like, these kids aren't stupid, man. Like, they're all going to. I mean, you're going to see an 8th grader with a financial advisor pretty soon. Like, this is going to happen.
They probably already have them.
We're talking college football right now, really, in reality, or college sports. Right. And think about it, and here's a great example, is Dabo Swinney. All right. And the portal.
Said no to it.
And the portal. I mean, he decided he's going to do it the way they've been doing it, et cetera, and maybe they're
Look
not
at
in
him.
the top 4 right now or whatever. And it's okay. How do you handle that? I mean, and think about all the kids who were in the portal. All right, decided I'm going to leave because I'm not getting my playing time here, and they go in the
Yeah.
portal, and they're still in the portal.
Yeah. Now you're nowhere, bro.
And they had, yeah. I mean, I
That's why
don't.
Montclair State's gonna get better.
And then high school players don't get recruited as much. Like I heard a
And I'm
talk
seeing it.
yesterday. A college coach, I can't remember where he's from, but a football coach was talking to high school players, and he was saying that he was responsible for a certain area. It was a guy who was responsible for the state of Ohio, and Ohio produces, let's say, normally 130 or 140
Not even
D1
close.
players at high school. He only took there was only 65 high school kids that signed a high school. Now, still 130 from the state of Ohio, but the other 65 were transfers who had been other places.
I mean, Dion openly already said that he's only taken 5 to 6 high school kids a year, period. Like, whereas normally they would look to get this.
I don't know how that could continue either. I don't know.
I'm just telling this whole movement is really going to, I mean, unless you are the tops of the tops, like down by, Heritage and whatever, coming out of college, it's going to be real hard to get that full something. Now, do I think schools will start to like kind of package certain things to kind of like, hey, this is what you're going to get eventually? Because, those guys getting full rides, like you're the guy now on campus, day one stuff, it's going to be cut a lot. High school guys are going to really have to.
And there's a lot of kids out there, and I know. I mean, I had a kid, David McFadden, a really good player for me. He was at Gettysburg, and because of COVID, he could play. He could have played there. I'm positive. All right. I called a coach, and finally the coach got back to me, and we talked, and he's just got 21 players, and kids have got an extra year now, and there's really no place.
I mean,
so we never got a chance.
That whole
So David transferred. He transferred, and he's at Brooklyn College, right? So he goes to Brooklyn College. I went to see him play last year. All right, played the entire game. Was a second leading scorer on the team that night, and he's playing well. He's playing really well. I knew he could play at the next level, but because of COVID and because of now what they're doing, like what you're just alluding to, I mean, where are these kids going to have a chance to get a scholarship now? It's going to be far and few between because they're going to take a lot of kids out of the portal.
And we've also said this too, like, right, Coach, like we've talked on this numerous times. Some of these kids, unless they get that full ride Division I, they don't want to go to a Monmouth or a Wagner, or they're definitely not wanting to go to a Division II Bloomsburg or East Stroudsburg. And then you want to talk like a Montclair State, William Patterson, Keene type of thing, like Division III. Absolutely not. These guys would just, I'm just going to go to University of Georgia and be a student, right? Because they don't really, it's just not there.
Yeah. I think in most of the sports, even basketball, it won't make a impact at all in the pool of players in the long run, because they're not, even though they're physical sports, they're not collision sports. But in a collision sport, to me, like football, if people don't see the opportunity as well, you could lose the pool at the bottom that gives you the elite kids down the line. So, I mean, this is, it may be beyond my years even, but it could be 10, 15 years down the line. It could be 30. It may take 30 years. I don't know. But boxing is my one example. Like when people realized that boxing really was as dangerous as it was, and people didn't need it to as, America became more prosperous, you didn't have as many guys that wanted to box in order to.
You didn't have to fight to survive.
Well, the pool of those guys becomes less. You have less boxing. Do you get less of a pool, and then you have less high school programs, some of the Group 1 programs that we all were a part of. Do they have enough players to field the team? Like I coached at Powell Park, Leonia. We were a co-op program, like those were storied programs, small schools back in the day that were co-opted and now struggle even when I was there, we were able to rebuild it back, but now it's hard for them even as a co-op. So down the line, do those programs struggle to even field teams? And I think that is the long run potential issue. I don't know if anybody cares because at the top they're all making money, right?
That's it. It's
I
all
don't know if
about
anybody
money.
cares, but to me, that's the part is that all your feeders start to go away. And the nice thing of the old Saddlebrook Glenrock game, or I don't know who your rival was at Butler back in the day, but whoever Butler's rival was,
Everybody.
right, whoever your rival, those could go away, and I think that's a shame.
Yeah, like a Kinnelon Mountain Lakes, which is a great rivalry still. Like, or
I'll tell you
was, it was. I mean, you're talking about Mountain Lakes, Del Barton, lacrosse, like.
Oh yeah,
rivalry.
Hey, Derek, Mountain Lakes and Butler, before Butler decided to leave.
Every year,
Butler
New Providence every year in the state finals, right? Even a Butler Cedar Grove was always a team that we had seen, like, you know.
And
like
before your time, Butler and Pompton Lakes, which I just saw this past weekend.
Yeah, I was telling Dave about that because we have a player who we work with real now. He's at the Hun School, Christian Soltis. His parents are Pompton Lakes people. Like that's where they grew up. Okay. And now they live down here in Freehold, and they have a son who goes to I'm like, hey, Dave, these guys are Pompton Lakes people. And it's like, and like you see it because of the rivalry. So you know what that kid's kind of built on, or what he's, how he's been, whatever. But those are all, look at Thanksgiving Day games. And we're down here in the Shore Conference, which are still trying to hold on to them as much as they can, but they're basically gone.
Well, you know what? That's another reason why, one of the reasons I'm not coaching, besides COVID and what happened the past 3 years.
Scheduling.
It's what they did to scheduling. I mean, they decided in their infinite wisdom, it's okay. I'm all for a group 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 state champions parochial.
Yeah. Playing it all the way down and stuff.
But at the expense of taking the winter season and moving it 1 week shorter. All right. So they can start the playoffs. So there's more time for kids to have downtime. What are you kidding me? All right. Mm-hmm. And then they take away the tournament of champions stuff. That's crazy.
That's crazy. That was crazy to me. That was crazy.
And Coach Schuman is a big track guy too. So like that's, he gets like, and you just to see all this stuff, like it's the tournament.
When you compete,
was awesome.
When you compete, you want to compete and you want to see how I can do against the best. When we had my team in '95 was a very good team. All right. We didn't make it to the tournament of champions in basketball, but they wanted to because they wanted to see how they would do against.
How do you stack up
against St. Anthony's? And I tell them, fellas, I can tell you, you won't get the ball past half court. Because you're awful quick. But
it'll be like the same thing with like my team currently right now.
But who cares? That's what you wanted. You wanted to strive to be there to do that. So now in basketball or the winter season, we start out in their infinite wisdom a while ago. They decided that Thanksgiving is a family holiday, so we can't practice then because we used to be able to do a double session on Friday, Saturday.
Oh, it's the best feeling ever.
Now they have a 3-day tryout, which is a practice, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then you're off for 4 days. What other sport does that? No other sport goes 3 days and then you're off for 4. Nobody. It's crazy. And then they take the last week away. So now we're playing Tuesday, Thursday. Oh, we got a game Saturday. Oh, we have another game on Monday. You cannot prepare.
Your schedule is so compact.
Too much so that the preparation that you would normally give, you don't have the time to give.
And what's extremely frustrating for coaches like us who are all in all the time about doing everything precise and this and that. Now we're scrambling, which makes, I'm not okay with that. Like I need to plan. We need to have this. We need to have that. And look, adjust with the times. I get it. But now you're talking, look, great coaches. It takes this to get it done. Right. And now we want to force this issue. So we'll take that other coach that is okay with doing it this way. And now you're going to see the entire, quality of the game, I think.
Gets back to what we talked about a while ago of sitting in the van and going to different places. Coaches, the new coaches don't want to do that. They don't want to go there.
Not if they're not getting paid for it.
Not if you're not
or not if it's out of basketball season.
Yeah, no.
We talk about it all the time, Dave, right? These guys look at it more like a hobby than a job.
Yep. Or a thing that's going to give you a paycheck.
And
Which
they
not a
get
very
mad
good
at you,
one.
and they get mad at you if you're asking them to coach. like when you ask them, what are you doing? They sip you know, we've had to explain it to some younger guys. Like, yeah, I want to know what you're doing. Like, what do you do? What's your plan for the day?
Right. It's
When
like,
you
oh,
have
what do
your
you mean?
drill
What do you mean?
period,
And you're like,
like
what? This?
what?
You see this that has times
I'll
next to
tell you,
it?
Coach.
Like,
Derek will laugh at this, and because I always say this, and football, I don't know exactly how it is at basketball because I've only coached like
you're
youth
learning. You're
basketball.
learning though. You're
But
learning
in
because you're a
football,
basketball coach now.
I know that's what I'm saying. I coach youth basketball now, but in football, what used to drive me crazy was, let's say you have 10 kids in your positional group, and the coach does one player at a time on each thing, and 9 guys stand around while it would drive me nuts. Like, can't you do 2 or 3 of them at the same time so we get more? Like, everything's about reps. And I would say, like, why do you do it that way? Well, they explain. I'm like, listen, I'm telling you that as much as you think you're explaining is making all the impact, what's really making the impact
It's
is
go.
doing it. You know, it makes the impact. Coach them on the fly. Teach them, correct them as they're going through the reps. Stand I always say stand at an apex, right? If there's 3 guys here, stand at the apex so you can see more of them versus standing on top of the one person and you only see what the one guy does when there's 3 guys going. So I don't know. That's my rant on that.
No, that's a good rant.
That's a good rant. I think it's but I've really enjoyed talking with you. I learned a ton. I really learned a ton. There's nothing better to me than like learn from other coaches and hearing what their thoughts are on things, because first of all, you realize as a coach, oh, I'm not the only crazy person thinking that. There are other guys that believe some of the same things that you do.
Yeah, no. And you know what? That's the great thing about exchanging ideas and things. And now I hope I get an opportunity to ask both of you a question.
Sure.
Okay, I'll go for you first. Can you play the piano that's behind you?
Okay, absolutely not, because it's not a real piano.
It's a green screen.
So this is technology. So
that ain't what he's playing.
That's a great question, though. Great question. And my piano skill, I do have some piano skills, but they're terrible. But I have a green screen, like when I go back here, you can kind of see
it. Yeah.
And it's
he does this a lot.
No, so you can next time we talk,
he could be on a beach. He could put a beach.
I can put a beach behind me.
Yeah.
Oh my God! And my question to you would be, well, I saw the orange and the blue over there, but I'm not going to ask you. What's your most prized possession in that room, Derek?
Oh man. To be honest, you'll laugh.
No. Lie to me.
Yeah,
yes.
I mean, look, you know me. I'm a traditionalist. Like, I like everything where I came from. So, I mean, if I had to, I like my Butler B that's on the wall back there, and then I do like the D2D shirt from Mike, obviously, because we have a different relationship. That's his company. You know, I feel like I was a foundational part of that, I guess, maybe because I was probably one of his first one-on-one clients when he was still up here. So to have that connection with Mike and just, you know, everything kind of trickles off of that D2D shirt. If you think about it, I mean, Walter Payton was one of those guys that Mike introduced me to, like, hey,
that's the jersey I want.
That's the staple that's up there. I mean, this was probably my North-South game. Like, that comes from Mike because I trained with him for everything. And that was pretty cool too. But I do like my Butler. I still have, you know, I don't know. I just love where I came from. I was raised in a great situation, football town. Like I say, everything that I've gotten has come from that and those guys in terms of being around just good coaches across the board. I mean, hell, I loved basketball, but we were god awful. But when Coach Jeff Todd took over, it was just a different beast. And he kind of instilled stuff in us that you wouldn't think of, you know. We were football players playing basketball, but, you know, he didn't look at us any different. He coached us up hard as hell. And I won 1 game my freshman year, 3 games my sophomore year, and then state playoffs junior and senior year. So he taught me a ton. It was just, you know, I just like the town I'm from. So,
well, let me tell you something. I went to Butler for 1 year.
I know you did.
Yeah. Well, before Kinnelon High School was built, my class, the first class to graduate from there, from Kinnelon. But I was there when Tommy Smith was a senior. Now
All-time leading rusher.
Tommy's brother is my brother-in-law. All right, and I used to tell Mike, I said, by far the best running back I've ever seen in high school. And I carry around in my bag. I have a brown bag, and I carry.
You end up going to Army, Dave.
Okay.
I carry this clip around. I still have it in my bag. I can pull it out and read it to you, but I don't need to. He carried. They played Sparta High School. Sparta was undefeated at Butler. Little miss that day. Wasn't raining real hard. A little miss that day. Tommy carried the ball 9 times, scored 7. 1 was called back. With the exception of maybe 1 or 2 that were maybe 20 yards, et cetera, the rest of them were like 50, 60, 70 yards. He was unbelievable. So
it was incredible. He was like
incredible runner who went to West Point, and he had scored his first game. The second game, his knee gave out, and that was it for him. But so now, I've told Michael about this a bunch of times. So now Mike's down in Florida, and he's working down in Florida there. And he goes, "You got to see this kid." All right, over on the West Coast, Noel Devine, his name is.
Oh,
so best high school highlight tape in history.
So now I said, you know what? I'm coming down. We went to the West Coast, drove over there, and I guess Deion Sanders had something to do with him too. Sanders. So we go over there. The kid was just like, it was ridiculous. It was like he was playing like a video game, and
yeah,
no one was going to tackle him. And he would just if he wanted to get a first down, just give him the ball. All right, yeah. Which they didn't do all the time. The weird thing about it, though, is, and I watched him, and you always watch kids like that. When he came off the sideline, it wasn't like everyone else really was jovial about him. Or
nope, nobody cared.
There was a distance there. But I said to myself, yeah, God, Tommy Smith was great, but this kid was unbelievable. And then, of course, years later, I'm there when what's his name, who played with the Patriots, Sony Michel.
Yeah, Sony Michel.
But Sony,
Mike had him from the time he was in 8th grade. He rushed for 1,000 yards as an 8th grader at Heritage on varsity.
Sony was a different type of runner, though.
Very much, yes.
And Tommy was a point guard on a basketball team. When he got the ball, he could see things and make cuts. He made cuts real quick, and he had tremendous balance. So he still is one of my favorites of all time. So, but that game was incredible. Absolutely incredible. It seemed like every time he touched the ball, he was going for a touchdown.
He was gone.
Yeah.
A lot of history here, right? And it's always been a lot of history, a lot of tradition. You talk about Coach Davies. They just honored like the 1983 team who went undefeated and all that stuff. And a lot of those guys are still there, so it's kind of, it's just different. So I take a lot of pride in it.
We got rained out this past weekend. All right. And so instead of playing on Friday, we played on Saturday at Verona. So I said, let me go to a football game tonight. And I see Butler's playing Pompton Lakes.
Mm-hmm.
So I go over there. Now, I don't know whether you knew it or not, but I was the AD there for about 3 or 4 months.
I know you were. Okay? You've worn a lot of hats around
here. Yeah, well, AD there was half a year from Mountain Lakes. But anyway, I was over there. I see a bunch of people. And then Chucky Tepper came in. A bunch of those guys.
Head coach of
they're all coming around and going, hey, good to see you. Yeah. Who's this guy? Hey, Coach. So we had a chuckle. But I watched the game. And, there's still guys there that were there when you were there. And Butler just took the ball, marched it right down the field. And then later on, they threw some pass. They won 33-7. So you see those Pompton Lakes people, let them know that you guys had a good game this year. But it was fun watching. It was fun going over there, and with a brand new blue field that they have. So it was cool.
Yeah. That's all different.
Yeah.
Coach, listen, appreciate it. Thank you so much. Knowledge dropped always. Like I said, you've been a mentor for me for a long time. You've always been there when I could pick up the phone, give you a call or anything like that. So I appreciate you dropping some knowledge on everybody else, because it helps. And it's a crazy world.
One other thing. Congratulations on your baby.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Adorable. Absolutely adorable.
Thank you.
Good luck.
We'll see how good.
Very nice talking to you. If you guys need me again, let me know.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
All right. Take care.
Take care.
That was great. Great.
It's like a Bible, bro. New Testament.
That's great.
He could go forever. And he's guys play for him. And he's been in some interesting situations. To
As
be honest,
tired as you're going to be in high school, right? You know, it's at some point.
if you want to be just straight about blunt about it, like I believed he left Kinnelon because they did not give Mike a job. You know, like he
Wow.
thought that Mike should have been his successor in terms of basketball. And I think it just kind of, there was teaching jobs that popped up and they never gave Mike an opportunity because I think he was too close to him, you know, something like,
Right.
you know how politics work,
Oh,
nonsense.
politics.
But you could have literally had a guy that would have been at Kinnelon for over 50 years as the head coach. And I know what he did, what he does, the type of coach that he is. And listen, that offense that he runs, it is so boring, Dave. Like Troy would lose his mind. It's pass, go, pass, go, pass, go, pass, go, pass, go, until it's like, all right, now we get an open one. Now we take it. Like I couldn't play in it. There's no way. But he's just a great coach. And some of the guys that he's coached, a lot of, let's say, less talented talent, right? And made them very good.
I'll tell you, it's funny you bring that up with Troy. By the way, amazing information. So here's the funny thing. So, you know how I like to go pretty fast, right?
Yeah.
There are guys that go faster than me, pace wise and stuff. But
really,
I like to go pretty fast. But what's funny is Troy at quarterback, like we have to yo, slow down. Like
right. He's so used to the pace of
he wants to go as soon as the ball. As soon as
used to
the play, he's like, "Let's go."
His flag, right? Like his flag stuff was. We were always kind of like, "Hey, you
that's
gotta."
What he wants to do.
Now he gets to. Now it's like, "Hey, dude, we gotta wait for these guys to get in the huddle."
Lined up. Yeah. He wants to just go.
Yeah. Listen, it's what we instilled in him. Now we're telling him to pump the brakes. Like,
It's pretty funny. It really is funny.
Good stuff though.
That was really, really good stuff. We'll kick it off from there until next time. That was a great one. That might have been our all-time longest. Is that possible? I think it is. An hour and a half.
Close. Yeah, because
he's 1:30.
We got to clip it up.
Yeah, this week I got to clip the last one too. I don't think I got to clips yet on the last.
Well, this next one, whatever one we have next week, will be our 20th official episode.
The next one will.
Next one will be the 20th, like since we started up.
Cool. All right, let's get it. Let's get out of here.
Awesome.